Let me just, as I move towards conclusion, point to one basic structural problem that we face in the Indian economy, which really needs to be addressed and is being addressed, I think, under the Prime Minister's Make in India program and a lot of the policy initiatives that are around that Make in India program. And that structural weakness is that in India, unlike Korea, Taiwan, China, etc., manufacturing has generally not done well. This proportion of manufacturing in the GDP has remained nearly constant at 15-16%. Under the new series, it kicks up to 17%, but still it's a low share. And moreover, it has not changed over the last 25 years. A sub-feature of that is the fact that successful industries in India, unlike again in Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, China, are not the labor-intensive industries. At this stage, when we got 500 million workers, almost a million workers joining the workforce every month, the growth in the labor-intensive industry, but that's not what is doing well. In India, the successful industries in the country today are auto parts, auto two-wheelers, you've got engineering goods industries, you've got petroleum refining, you've got chemical industry, or you got this skilled labor. So these are all capital-intensive industries. Alternatively, you've got skilled labor-intensive industries, such as obviously software, telecommunications, pharmaceuticals, etc. Industries that provide vast volumes of employment are simply missing. Are certainly not growing in the rapid way. Dramatic example is the clothing industry, where China today exports about $177 billion worth of clothing exports. India is 1/10 of that at 17 billion. Much smaller country, Bangladesh, only 1/6 of India's size, exports in absolute terms more clothing to the world markets. And 2 years ago, even Vietnam actually has crossed India in absolute terms. And Vietnam, remember, is a very tiny country. Something is amiss in the system which keeps the labor-intensive industry from growing rapidly in India. And that is a critical factor which needs to be addressed. I think part of it has to do with the policy regime, the infrastructure issues, the labor market inflexibilities, rigidities, etc. A lot of what the Prime Minister has kicked off in the last year goes to that in various ways has been addressed. A lot of the labor-related issues have been either at the state level in states such as Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and to be followed shortly, I suppose, by Maharashtra and for Gujarat as well. Labor market reforms for the first time have now been undertaken. In 25 years, nobody had touched that. I think finally it has happened. The central government is also considering such reforms. Land acquisition is another rigidity which needs to be addressed and is currently on the radar screen. Ease of doing business, I think the government has taken very seriously. The Prime Minister directly has got involved in that. A lot of the procedures, etc., are being simplified. Prior to that, at the beginning of the government, of course, a lot of the bureaucratic inertia, paralysis that had existed has now been solved, and the clearances, etc., at least at the central level, are being moved much more rapidly. The skill development is being kicked off, so skill development is a major initiative of the government. Likewise, urbanization kind of goes side by side, hand in hand with industrialization, and so the Smart Cities initiative is also trying to then push up the urbanization as well. So a series of things are being done, but remember that the fruits of the reforms accrue over a much longer period of time, and we'll see that. And to end the lecture on an optimistic note, let me just make the point why I think future is bright. I remain very optimistic. We will over the next 10 to 15 years grow maybe 8 to 10%. One, we have actually done this before, so it's not like I'm not telling you something that has never been done before. Luckily, in spite of people thinking that democracy really doesn't allow more than 6% growth, we grew 8.3% over a 9-year period. And if you want to take it full decade, we grew at about 7.9%. So we have done it. During that period, actually, if you take growth in the real dollars, because There was also currency appreciation, which is a natural outcome when per capita incomes rise. As our per capita incomes rise relative to the per capita incomes in the rest of the world, the rupee will in real terms appreciate, which it did during those 9-10 year period. So if you take the growth actually in real rupees, it was closer to 12% between 3-4 to 11-12. Now, even if we do in rupee terms, in real dollars, a growth of 10% over a 15-year period, that accumulates from $2 trillion today to about $8 trillion. Japanese economy, which is the third largest today, is only about $5 trillion. So prospects that we would actually become third largest economy in maximally in 15 years are in fact incredibly good. Now, why can we sustain the growth? Why can we get back to the 8 to 10% growth? Number one, I've mentioned, the government is very vigilant, very responsive, and reforms are therefore happening. Number one. Number two, the savings and investment rates in India still have held up to about 30% now. And at peak in 2007-8, savings and investment rates are over 35%. So there is scope to go further up, and the current rate itself is not anything to downplay. 30% investment savings rate itself is fantastically good, actually. Also, demographically, certainly labor shortages will not be our problem. That will be China's problem, and that is currently the Japan's problem, for instance. So we can be sure. And also, today our per capita incomes at $1,500-$1,600 per capita is here. The world, in advanced countries, per capita income is up here, which simply says that the technology frontier, global technology frontier is way up there. And as we travel towards this global technology frontier, we can really grow very rapidly. Now, China's growth in part is going to now slow down precisely because the technology, China is today much closer to the global technology frontier, and therefore it can only move eventually, in another few years, maybe there's still some gap, so it can go at 6-7%. But once it joins the global technology frontier, it will move only as fast as technology frontier itself moves. And that's usually the rates you observe in the advanced countries like America and Europe, where these economies now are not growing more than 2 or 3. I mean, even the economies that are doing well are not growing more than 3%, or when they do very well, as the US economy did during the tech boom, 4%. Whereas India, being still very far away from the technology frontier, has a lot of catch up to do, and therefore has the scope to actually move much more rapidly. And so I think future is quite bright, and hopefully within my lifetime I will see India become the third largest economy of the world. Thank you.